Hey everybody, Curseius here, and welcome back to Might and Magic Heroes. So now, really quick, today I have actually unlocked all Rampart faction units, which is pretty cool. Rampart faction units have a lot of defensive units, and a SSR ranked spellcaster unit, and a couple ranged units, and I'm going to talk about them all today. So, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get started. So, the first unit is going to be the Centaur. The Centaur is a defensive unit that has the ability to cause both bleed and slow to enemy units, and this is important for later in the game because there are more than a few units that synergize with the bleeding debuff and the slow debuff. So the Centaur actually does give a lot of beneficial things. Now, I haven't built my Centaurs up all the way, but I probably am going to because, like I said, the bleeding and slow is actually a really good pair of debuffs to have. So I'm probably going to be building these guys up and pushing into them. So as you can see, Battle Stomp is their ability. They just do that ability and boom, they just deal damage. Their next passive here is Strong. They gain 45% more HP, 45% more defense, and 45% more HP. I'm sorry, and 5.5% more defense. When upgraded to purple, they gain. Or is it? Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Purple. When upgraded to purple, they gain more attack power, and their normal attacks cause bleeding on the target for 6 seconds, which is pretty good. Like I said, bleeding is a synergy ability and synergy debuff and is important. When they hit orange, they become Fearless Leader passive. The Centaur's unit damage reduction is increased by 5%, grants the Centaur with an extra 2% extra damage reduction for every defensive unit on the battlefield. So when there's more defensive units on the battlefield, like the Iron Golem, the Dwarf, the Swordsman or Iron Crusaders, depending on what you're doing, the Centaur gains 2% more damage reduction for every one of those units. Probably, realistically, probably at the most to be like an 8% more damage reduction, which is pretty good. So overall, like I said, the Centaur here is a strong 4-man defensive unit that is kind of meant to keep your enemies slowed and bleeding while your other DPS synergize with the slow and bleeding effects. And the Centaur just is meant to stay alive for as long as this happens. So the next unit is going to be the Dwarf, which is a unit I have been using because of its ability to buff. And look, I can upgrade that. I'm going to. Anyway. The Dwarf skills include, first, its ultimate, which is just a trigger at the beginning of the battle. At the beginning of the battle, the Dwarf unit increases the HP of all units within a large range, which I believe a large range means just every unit around it. At least that's what I've seen. And it increases their HP by 20%, and their damage... The damage they deal is increased by 5.5%. Their defenses are also increased by 5.5%, and the effect lasts the entire battle. So the more units you have around this guy at the start of the battle, the more he buffs them, which is good. Cry of Rage, which is his purple passive. His own defense, his own HP is increased by 6%. His own attack speed is increased by 12%, and his own unit damage is increased by 6%, and his blue passive here, or ability, actually is Smite. It's a trigger. His normal attacks have a chance to trigger, dealing 225% more damage to its targets, and, thank you game, and stuns the target for 2 seconds. Which, to be honest, the Dwarf is just an all-around meaty support, defensive support, is what I would call it. It's just a meaty, kind of a meat shield support. Overall, it's good, but it doesn't do anything like, it doesn't do anything super special, but it's good because it buffs everything around it at the beginning of the battle, which is honestly, which is good enough in its own right. The next is going to be the Wood Elf. The Wood Elf is a ranged unit. Basically, it's just a DPS unit. So first, its ultimate skill is Rain of Arrows. Its attack speed increases to 500% for 2 seconds at the current rank it is at 3 stars. So what this means is that for 2 seconds, it's probably going to shoot off maybe like 4 or 5 really quick attacks in succession, maybe even more. Because I don't really know the attack speed. Attack speed is 7.3. So if you times that by 5, it's going to have like a 3.5 attack speed, maybe a little bit more, meaning that it will probably shoot off within 2 seconds 5 or 6 attacks. So that's pretty good in quick succession. Now the blue passive is Double Strike, meaning the Wood Elf has a 15% chance to shoot 2 arrows when using a normal attack. The second arrow causes 65% damage. So basically what this means is that it will attack an enemy twice in a row, but the second attack is only two-thirds as effective, but it's still 2 attacks in a row without having to wait for the next attack. So it's pretty good. Thank you, game. Anyway. And when fighting against slowed units, the trigger chance is 100%. Meaning that if it's fighting against a slowed unit, the trigger chance is 100%. It will double strike every time, which is pretty good. Now, the next ability is the Elf Shelter. Now, this is a trigger. Each Wood Elf gets 1 shield every time a hostile hero casts a spell, absorbing damage equal to 15.8% of the max HP for 5 seconds. So basically what this means is when a hostile spell is cast on them, they will gain a shield equal to 16% of their maximum HP. Now when you upgrade them to orange, their passive becomes Concentrate Fire on their leader. Wood Elf's critical hit is increased by 100%. Now what that means here, if I can see it, I don't see any critical hit value, but any critical hit value they've gained over the course of the battle, I guess, is increased by 100%. So, and they grant 40% okay. They gain 40 extra crit hit for every other ranged unit on the battlefield. So basically, if there's 3 ranged units on the battlefield, they have 120 crit, but that's increased by 100%, so they have 240 crit. And what the conversion is to critical hit rate, I don't know. So, sorry about that. Anyway, the next is the Pegasus, which is a pretty good 4-man ranged unit. Excuse me there. And basically, I'm going to rank that up. Anyway, level that up. And this is a 4-man flying ranged unit, by the way. Forgot to mention. Now, the first ability is the Forest Guardian. This is a trigger. When the Pegasus dies, it summons 1 other Pegasus to keep fighting. The summoned Pegasus has 4,292 attack and 53,360 HP and exists throughout the entire battle. So basically, when the ranged flying unit dies, it spawns 1 flying melee unit to continue fighting. Overall, this is kind of a lackluster-ish passive, but it kind of creates a little mini tank unit to continue fighting after the Pegasus has died. So it's not that bad, but it's not like oh my god, battle breaking, So anyways, Razor Sharp, this is the green passive. Pegasus' attack speed increases by 5.4%. Its normal attacks makes their target bleed for 6 seconds. So basically, this is again the bleeding synergy. This goes along with the green dragon, which I'll discuss pretty soon here. But bleeding just causes lasting damage, like damage over time to enemy units. Anyway, Vitality Protection. This is a trigger. Pegasus creates a shield for allied units within a large range that absorbs damage equal to 12% of maximum HP. So basically, they just give a shield to friendly units around them, including themselves, which is pretty good. And then when they turn orange, Cavalry of Silver Wings. Pegasus and the summoned Pegasus attacks increases by 15% and their HP is increased by 15%. So basically they gain more attack and more HP, which makes them more of a, especially the summoned Pegasus, more of an off-tank kind of DPS. So overall pretty good. And this, by the way, the faction specialty skill, when they're all made red, basically they just suffer from crowd control less. And their crit damage is increased by 3% when fighting against slow and bleeding targets. If the target is suffering from 2 of the above mentioned stats, the effect doubles. So it's actually not bad. Woo! So next is going to be the Dendroid Guardian, which is actually another defensive unit. This faction actually has a lot of defensive units. Now the Dendroid is a defensive unit, like I said. It's a one-man defensive unit, so it has a huge HP pool. Or one man, one monster. Anyway, its first ability, its ultimate ability is Bind. The Dendroid Guard deals slow to surrounding hostile units within a large range. Large range kind of just meaning everything around it within one radius, I think. And reduces their attack speed by 21% for 10 seconds. So they get less attack speed and they are slowed, which is pretty good. The next ability, Crushing Roll. Now, the Dendroid Guard's normal attack has a chance to create a shield for himself to absorb damage equal to 5.6% of maximum HP. Now, this doesn't sound like a lot, but the Dendroid Guardian has 500,000 HP at level 51 here. And at 2 stars and whatever rank it's at. So, 5% of that is like that's like a 25,000 HP shield whenever it triggers. So it's actually a lot. Anyways, Armor of Petrified Wood. Passive. This is the purple passive. The Dendroid Guardian is immune, or this is, yeah. Anyways, he's immune to bleeding and his HP is increased by 36% more. So the more HP he has, the better his Crushing Roll skill. So basically everything here just kind of synergizes with each other. Now his orange passive, when you upgrade him finally there, Wooden Stake. When the Dendroid Guard is under attack, it will reflect damage equal to 2% of its attack, making the attacker bleed. That's kind of like excluded from here, but it's bleed for 6 seconds. Because I know it's bleeding because it puts down what bleeding is down here. So that's what it's supposed to be. Which 2% of its own attack. It's got 16,000 attack, so, you know, you're doing the math there. It's not a lot, but it's still pretty decent damage over time, especially if the unit that's attacking him has a high attack speed, in which case then it's just dealing a lot of damage back to itself. Anyway, so the next unit is the Unicorn. The Unicorn! Alright, let's see. Now, the Unicorn is kind of, I generalize this unit as kind of a charging tank, off-tank, or an off-tank for the most part. The reason being for its ability. First, Blind. Unicorn casts Blind on the row where the target is, blinding the target for 9.2 seconds. Basically, Blind just decreases the enemy's hit rate by 1,000. Again, conversion-wise, I don't know what this is. So, in percentage, rather. So, sorry. Anyways, Flicking Figures. This is the blue passive. Every time the Unicorn dodges, or it's green passive, whatever. Anyways, the Unicorn dodges, it has a great chance of creating a shield for itself that absorbs damage equal to 13.5% of its max HP, which that is 68,000. So, yeah, about 12,000, something like that, 13,000. Anyways, it doesn't say give any particular time, so I guess it just lasts until the shield's gone. The next passive at purple is Angelic Light. Skill Blind increases the unit's damage taken by the target for 14% further. So in other words, units that the Unicorn has debuffed with Blind will now also take 14% more damage. So basically, overall, this is kind of an off-tank support kind of charging unit, which kind of makes it pretty decent because it increases the damage enemy units are taking, and overall just is just pretty decent overall. Like if you have all the proper like synergies and everything that go along with this, then the unicorn is actually pretty decent. And now the last unit in the Rampart faction is the Green Dragon. Now, I have to admit, I had to actually kind of retranslate what the developer was talking about with some of its abilities. So you have to bear with me here. So, Flood of Poison. The Green Dragon spits venom within a vast range in front of it. Vast range in front of it means the whole row it's in. Anyways, dealing 3,519 damage to non-flying hostile units. So anything that's on the ground is going to be taking the damage. Anyways, its damage to bleeding targets is increased by 50%. So it's going to do about 5,200 damage per second to ground units that are bleeding. And of course, very conveniently, the game tells you what units cause bleeding down below. So that's always good. The Green Dragon is also a caster unit, and it is a one-man unit. Anyways, the next skill is the Venomous Breath. Passive, when fighting against a 9-man unit. 9-man units are generally like swordsmen, skeletons, orcs, stuff like that. Anyway. When fighting against a 9-man unit, a normal attack deals 45% AoE damage to 3 targets. So generally, I think this means that the Green Dragon's normal attacks will splash off of 9-man units and onto surrounding enemy units. Is what I think it means. Anyways, now this one I had to retranslate a little bit because it didn't make too much sense. Green Dragon skills passive. The Green Dragon is immune to bleeding. We got that. All friendly units' damage reduction to water spells is increased by 30%. So water spells deal 30% less damage to all friendly units. Okay, now this is where it gets a little weird. When the Green Dragon gets a shield, its attack speed will increase by 21%. This effect is active for... Thank you. This effect is active for 15 seconds. When there are friendly flying units in the battle, the Green Dragon increases its own damage by 3%. So basically what I think that means is that for every friendly flying unit in the battle, the Green Dragon has 3% more damage. So that's what I believe I get from this. So the Green Dragon synergizes with other flying units, basically. But anyway, so that is pretty much it, though. This is overall a strong caster unit. You kind of want to have him supported with other flying units and pretty much just units that can give him a shield, which would be the Pegasus, or if you can give him a shield yourself via a hero spell, stuff like that. So Green Dragon, pretty good unit. I use it a lot. It's an SSR, which means it starts at 3 stars. And its tokens are hard to come by, obviously. So, they are actually hard to come by, even in the barracks, where they require the Dragon Blood crystals. Cannot be acquired through normal methods. Coming soon, yeah. So you can't even get those right now. I believe those will be able to be gotten probably in the Dragon Invasion, which is coming in 11 days. And pretty soon, by the way, I will be going through chapter 13 here, and I'll be trying to claim the Solomir hero. So stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit that notification bell, do all that cool stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.